everybody. Welcome to Exchange. I'm here with my buddies, Cole and Stan. Their ministry is CameUntoChrist. And we're just going to have you guys introduce yourselves. So go ahead, Cole.
What's going on, everybody? My name's Cole Morganti. I'm one of the co-founders of CameUntoChrist. I'm currently out here in Utah. I work for Ratio Christi as an internship and am finished a degree at North State University in philosophy.
Cool, philosophy dude. And then Stan, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Stan. I help out, well, I guess I could say I'm a co-founder of CameUntoChrist Ministries with Cole, and we have another guy that works with us, Will. He's not here today. But yeah, I've gotten into the ministry of reaching to Mormons a couple of years ago and been passionate about it ever since. Met people along the way like Cole, and we decided to start our own ministry.
Cool. And so what was the inspiration behind your ministry? I know you guys went on a missions trip with Ratio Christi back in March, and I know you guys had a lot of fun because I was there.
Yeah. I like how Stan tells it. So okay. Stan, why don't you do that?
Yeah. Wait, for the...
how the ministry started.
Yeah. So... Yeah, so we had, so back, Cole, I met Cole actually at the Apex Temple because they had an open house temple before they dedicated it. And so that's how we officially met, and we stayed in contact. And I was going on this mission trip in the spring to Utah, and Cole was also, because he's interning with Ratio Christi, so he was already there, but he was going to be on the trip. And then he met Will on TikTok, so that's how he got him roped in. And then I just get a text out of the blue. Cole's like, "Hey, I'm recruiting you to be a part of this ministry." And I'm like, "Okay."
You have no choice.
No, I kind of told him. I texted him and I said, "Hey, you are now a co-founder of CameUntoChrist," and he's like, "What?" So. I just had to this grainy picture of a logo where it's just a box with the words CameUntoChrist in it. And I'm like, there we go.
Yeah. So. And then Stan made it all pretty, right? Is that what
and then Stan made it pretty.
He's the graphics guy. He makes everything pretty.
Yeah, I was like, I love the idea, but can I do some of the graphics?
It's like, if I'm going to put my name behind this, it has to look good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, how is the ministry going? I know you guys have... How many followers do you guys have now?
I think, we're on a bunch of social media. So we have a TikTok and Instagram, a Facebook page. On Facebook, we're around, I think, 150 followers now by God's grace. And on Instagram, we've actually reached 870 now followers.
That's
and
good.
So, yeah, I mean, for starting in
March, was it March?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I've heard really great things about it from people who have been listening to it. So good job, guys.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, we kind of started it. We had the idea of it before the trip in March, but we started actually doing a lot of work on it after the trip was over, and we were all energized about evangelizing the Mormons. And we got this.
Yeah, I saw you had all your camera gear with you on the mission trip, your little fancy mic, and I was like, well, he knows what he's doing. Yeah, so tell me about your experience on the missions trip to Utah. How is it different from other missions trips that maybe you've gone on, and what, tell us just what does it look like day to day?
Yeah, I think for me, so I am living in Utah, so it's a little different moving out to do the mission trip, but also
but you did move out to be a missionary.
But I did, but I did move out to be a missionary. So as I'm doing Ratio things, we're having our meeting once a week at the University of Utah, having good conversations and whatnot, and then in my free time, I'm going and talking to Latter-day Saints whenever I can. They live everywhere here, but it's different for the mission trip because it's kind of a week just hyper focused on talking. It'll take all of your energy to get through that week to be able to just give your what God has given you to talk to the Latter-day Saints. So for me, I just had never been super hyper focused in doing that. It kind of was my lifestyle, and I can kind of make it a mundane thing, but to be able to kind of dial in and do it for a whole week was really intense. And it was different for me because growing up, my mission trips, quote unquote, in school were not really mission trips. I mean, we did a lot of good work, but they weren't centered around spreading the gospel. And so that was really different here. We're going to a place where Christianity is a minority and people haven't even heard the gospel before. And so for me, that was very great to just be able and then come alongside, 25 other Christians who care about the Latter-day Saint population that want to do that as well. So I loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah, and I loved our first one so much that I'm moving to Utah. So, yeah, I mean, when people think about Utah, they're like, yeah, Mormons. That's the only thing. Yeah. It is kind of true. I mean, was it like 90% of the state is LDS? And there are places in Utah that there are more Christians in Saudi Arabia than there are in like counties of Utah. So that just blows my mind because this is America. So, Dan, tell us about your experience on the mission trip.
Yeah, I just want to say, so I think that what you said, Jane, that you're moving to Utah because of the trip. I'm pretty sure everyone who goes on the trip at least contemplates the idea of like, what if I did move to Utah? But yeah, so for me, obviously, it's a little bit of a different experience from most people as well, because I'm out of college, and so most people on the trip would be students. But when I was in college, I was involved with Crew, and I did some mission trips, short-term mission trips with them over the summer. So I had some experience with that. But Utah is definitely a very unique mission field, and there's something really special about going to Utah because you think, I guess you think, oh, like, as you said, Jane, we're in America. Like, of course, people know the gospel, at least they've heard of it, even if they're not believers. They at least have, an understanding of what the Bible teaches to some degree, at least, of, Orthodox historic Christianity. And you come to Utah and people want to talk about Jesus, which is amazing. But their idea of who Jesus is so different than anything that you've ever heard of, really. It's very, very, strong contrast between being in the Bible Belt versus being in Utah.
And like, what are things that are just like, wow, this is not the Christianity I know? Like, just like two things off the top of your head that the LDS believe about Jesus that you're like, what?
Yeah, I would say, and along with Stan, like our number one thing is that like Jesus was created and that he became a God. So obviously on our position with the Trinity, we believe that Jesus has eternally existed, is co-equal in glory and majesty with the Father, has always been, like in John 1. But the LDS don't believe that. They believe that he was literally begat by the Father. And then depending on who you talk to, that the Father literally came down, knocked on Mary's door and did the business. So that is not my Jesus, that is not our Jesus, the one that can save you. And then even later, progressed to godhood, like became a God by obeying the law. But that's not the Jesus now. And so those are the first things that just kind of stick out in my mind, and I think every Christian's mind should be like, whoa, wait, this isn't the same thing, because they'll try and tell you it is. But it's not, and so we can't let them get away with that, especially to like interact the LDS, thinking about their number one convert is from other Christian churches. So a lot of Christians, quote unquote, evangelicals think that's just another denomination. And so what's the difference between going to a place that has a wood building or this place with a really nice temple? Oh, I'm going to do that. And so that should be the scary part, is that their number one convert is Christians. But yeah, that's what I would say about Jesus.
And Stan, do you have another one? I have one in my mind, but do you have one, Stan?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that Cole said. I think those are, the essentials of who Jesus is. Like, we don't believe that he's a created being. We don't believe that he was a polygamist. Not all Mormons would probably believe that, but a lot of historic Mormons.
Maybe FLDS people might, which is fundamental The fundamentalist. Yeah. So they're the ones.
No, they definitely teach that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I don't know. What are you thinking off the top of your head?
Mine
Julie?
is that Jesus and Lucifer are brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
that is a big one. And to the LDS, when they hear that, they're like, yeah, but we're all brothers and sisters. So like it's a weird thing for Christians to bring up because they understand that we're all spiritually begotten by the Father and Heavenly Mother, or however heavenly mothers there are. There could be, thousands. But so when we say, but you believe Jesus is the brother of Lucifer, they're like, yeah, but we're all brothers and sisters. So they don't even understand why that's weird.
Yeah, a child of God in LDS is very different from a child of God in biblical Christianity because they actually believe we're spirit children that come down to earth and take on human form so that we can live the right life, so then we could spend eternity in the celestial kingdom with God if you've done all the right things. So yeah, there's a lot of really different things, and I don't know how people think, okay, if you just look at the basic things that they believe, they're not Christians. They don't believe the things in the Bible. So it's just like that's probably why a lot of people don't think about evangelizing the LDS population, because they're like, oh, they're Christians. But like, if you really just look at the basic beliefs, I mean, they are not the same as biblical Christianity.
Yeah, I mean, Christians will say it too, but I get a lot from my Latter-day Saint friends that they say, let's focus on our similarities. And I'm like, well, why would we don't have any? And that's the thing. They think there's all these similarities, but the only thing that's the same is that we're speaking English and we're using the terms in the King James Bible.
Yeah.
But other than that, there are really no similarities. I mean, it's all just words are the same, but that all the terms are different.
Yep.
Exactly.
Meanings are completely different. So when you do tactics, you're going to have to say, what do you mean by that? Because what they mean is not what we think they mean. I mean, you talk to them and they're saying like salvation, gospel, the good news, Jesus Christ, but they mean different things. So it's like, people, if you're not going to ask them, what do you mean by that? You're going to think that they're Christians until you get into the deeper theology, maybe. That's where it gets a little even more weirder. I mean, the more I study Mormonism, I'm just like, what?
Weirder it gets. Yeah.
So,
it's like a well that never.
Yeah. The one book that I really enjoy a lot, if you want to just learn the basics of Mormonism, is Mormonism 101 by Bill McKeever. It's like a little encyclopedia, kind of. Highly recommend that to people who want to learn more about Mormonism. So, Cole, you've lived in Utah for a year now?
Yeah, coming up on a year.
Yeah, and you don't want to leave, right?
No, I do not want to leave. I signed myself into a lease to go back to North Carolina like the first month I got here. And then 2 months in, I go, I don't want to leave here. Yeah. So no, I have to go back to school. Gotta finish my go back to school, finish my degree. And then, but no, I want to get back out to Utah as soon as possible. Utah is I can't even describe it. It just, when I first came here, I went to this thing. It's called the Faith After Mormonism Conference. And we just had people that were LDS that have come to faith come. There was like a panel where they talked, and then we had some pastors from the area give talks and whatnot. But even right then, I kind of knew that there are no Christians out here. Like this was a Christian conference, now barring it was COVID, right? But still, I'm like, there's no one here, yet we're putting on this conference. And I'm looking at the demographics, and there's like, I mean, the county that I live in, Utah County, is less than 0.5% evangelical. That's insane. Like, I think I've met all of them in Utah County. And it's 93.
It's like all of them.
Yeah. No, you do. You see that cross necklace. Yeah. You'll see someone with a cross necklace like across the grocery store, and you'll just like get your way over there and be like, "Oh, are you a Christian?" Like, yeah. And then But I mean, but it's 93.7% Latter-day Saint, and so and there's roughly 600,000 to like 900,000. I forget the exact number, but people living in that county. So if you do the math, that's that's kind of overwhelming, right? And not to mention, there's like 5 if you go from Salt Lake down to Provo, where BYU is, like a 40-mile distance, you'll pass 5 temples, soon to be like more, because they're building so many.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, yes. And every time I'm there, it's like, this is America. It's so different from, I mean, I've traveled to lots of states, and I mean, I live in California and people think it's crazy here, but we still have a lot of churches out here and there's Christians here. You go to Utah and I'm just like, there's a ward like every, like, what, 2 blocks maybe?
Yeah, it's like every neighborhood. Yeah.
And and so when I saw that map by your pastor, Will Galkin, is that his last name? I was just like, he does this like super like he like imposes like how many like evangelical churches are, and then the amount of wards, and then the amount of temples, and you're just like, Christianity is nothing in Utah. Like evangelical Christianity is nothing. And I think that was one of the things that really gripped my heart, is like, why aren't there more Christians out here trying to reach people with the gospel? And that's why I was like, I think I need to move here. Like, it's like God was like, you need to move here. And then COVID happened, and I was like, well, maybe I'm not moving. And now it's finally happening, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm moving. So, Stan, are you moving to Utah?
I know, I want to. I haven't made any plans.
We'll get Stan back. When I move back, we'll get Stan. We'll get Stan out.
No, honestly, that's like part of back of my mind is like, whenever Cole goes back, I'll go back with him.
You guys can come together. Yeah. So I mean,
I feel like it's doable. It's just a matter of time.
It's a matter of time. That's what everybody was saying to me.
That's what everyone. Like,
after that first mission trip, March 2020, like right before COVID, I met a lot of people from California who moved to Utah, and they're doing ministry to the LDS population. And I'm just like, oh, all of you guys are from California. This is kind of crazy. And they're like, so when are you moving here? And I'm like, what? Like, what? And then every time I'd go visit, everybody like, when are you moving here? I was like, I don't know. I'm still kind of stuck in a lease. And then Aaron Marshall is just like, it's just a matter of time, Jade. I'm just like,
he kind of speaks into existence.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I have less than a month left in California, or a little over a month, and I'm off to Utah. So
there you go.
Crazy stuff. But anyhow, what do you guys enjoy about Utah? Because I think Utah is not a state that people talk about.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, gosh, well, I guess it depends. I mean, so like for ministry purposes, I love Utah because, keep saying to me, and I even hear this back in North Carolina, they're like, man, I want to do this in ministry, but I just don't know if there's a place for it. There's already so many Christian bookstores. There's already so many Christian this, that if you want to do anything Christian, Utah needs it. So just come out here. You want a Christian bookstore? You want a Christian coffee shop? You want a Christian like playground? I don't know. We need it. And so that's what I love about Utah, is that the opportunity to spread the gospel, not just the opportunity, like making it for yourself, but so many people need it. Like so many people need it. But even on the material side, I guess you could say, is just that Utah is beautiful, and nobody talks about it. Like I have gone to national parks like Zion, Bryce, the Grand Canyon's like literally right there, only like 5 hours away. This place, like Southern Utah, is like a whole different universe. It's so pretty just to be able to go and hike and all those things, and the snow for skiing over by Park City and Brighton and all those places. I mean, like if you want to live, if you want to have fun things to do, Utah's king in that. So I mean, like here, I've just been doing so many things that I've never even done before, because in North Carolina, I just kept myself just shuttered away. But here, it's just like a whole oak. So I mean, I've loved it the past year. I've been doing things I've never done.
Yeah.
So,
how about you, Stan? What stands out about Utah?
What stands out? Well, I think, as we said, there's basically no Christians in Utah, and the Christians that are there are on fire for the truth. And so I think you have this culture where, like, it's very clear who's a Christian and who's not. and who's really walking with Jesus, and that and I think that it has this effect on the church where everyone is just like so. And the community is just, you can tell, like, it's small, but it is very close and tight knit.
Yeah.
And like I feel like everyone knows each other. The the people that are experts in Mormonism and have lived there and done for decades, they're like all accessible, and they're like all friends with each other, and so I think it's just it's like doing ministry in like the 1040 window, basically.
Yeah.
Where there's like no Christians at all, and I think there's really powerful about living in that kind of environment. And not to say like you can't do ministry in other places, because we need the gospel everywhere. But I think there's something that's really attracted me to that idea of, especially because the ministry of reaching out to cults and people that are trapped into this religious system, and they think that they have the truth, but they're victims. They're victims to their religious system that tells them that they have to work to earn salvation, and they're being lied to and deceived, and it breaks our hearts. And we can see the effects of that with suicide rates, opioid addiction, all these things. And you can it's no secret in Utah, like, that there's a lot of things that are really wrong with the culture there. We went to BYU and we've been talking to people, and like we talked to some Mormons that were saying, oh yeah, like Utah Mormonism is different than Mormonism like everywhere else, because culture here, and we talked about to some people who said, I only came to BYU because it gave, like, I had a scholarship, or like if you're a Mormon, then you get like, I don't know, it's with your tuition it is
like half off or something.
Like,
they get good deals. That's a lot of the students.
Yeah.
They go to school here because it's cheap.
Yeah, exactly. So some Mormons from out of state were like, yeah, I don't like the culture here because it's like kind of toxic with everyone trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
But I get it's really good financially.
Make some money.
So that's,
yeah.
Like at least some of the Mormons that we talked to, that's why they say they came. But it strikes me like, well, don't you realize the reason the culture is toxic is because this perfectionist like idea is built into your theology, and it's so concentrated in Utah. Everyone's trying to do it.
Yeah.
So it just breaks our heart.
I know there's other statistics about like the highest amount of plastic surgery, highest amounts of bankruptcy, because they have to show people like, well, I have all this stuff, and to look good on the outside and stuff. So it's just so sad. And it's just the outworking of their religious beliefs. That perfection is attainable, or that's what they think. But yeah, people are miserable and depressed. So let's talk about the missions trip. What does that look like day to day? And just kind of give us a run through so people who are watching this would want to come on this missions trip. So being a philosophy major, Cole, be very persuasive and have good arguments.
Yes. Yeah, I got to give my opening statement. And then I'll hit you with my 3 points, and then I will close. No, but no, my opening statement is come to Utah. I mean, again, like I said, this place is beautiful. It's awesome. But I mean, this mission trip, I mean, if you have a heart for talking to people who need the gospel, and don't have that much experience, or just want to reach a people group, that this trip is literally built for you. Like, this is why we do the trip, because we want people to get talking, right? Culture says don't talk. The outside world says don't talk. We want to have these important conversations that really matter about things, right? Like, I was so shocked the first time I went to Temple Square and I'm talking to these missionaries, and a sister missionary says to me, "Oh, you're an evangelical? Never met an evangelical. Or what do you believe?" And I'm like, "Wait, you haven't met a Christian?" And she's like, "Oh no, like, I'm from Washington." Like, she wasn't from Utah. She's like, "I'm from Washington. Everyone there is LDS, like this town." Wow. And I was like, "Hold on, what?" And so that's the kind of walls that you hit if you come out here to Utah and you can feel the weight of the gospel needed in here. But on a day-to-day basis, I mean, we are going. We wake up, we'll go to church, we'll go to an LDS ward, we'll see the differences. We'll have keynotes talk to us. Some of the big name apologists to the LDS, like Rob Savolka or Bill McKeer, that Mormonism 101 book Jane mentioned. We'll go to Temple Square. We'll go to BYU, which is the Mormon college, if you didn't know what we meant by BYU before that.
Can you
We'll
tell
go
what
door knocking.
BYU stands for the people who
Yeah,
don't know what BYU is?
yeah, BYU stands for Brigham Young University,
There we go.
and Brigham Young is the second prophet of, or was the second prophet of the Latter-day Saint Church. And so they believe in continuing prophets. And so Joseph Smith was the first one who restored the gospel, and Brigham Young was his successor, who had anywhere between 52 to 55 wives. So, you know, this stuff is just like ingrained in the culture. I mean, the towns are named after Mormon towns. There's Lehi, Nephi, Moroni. I mean, it's everywhere, right? You can't escape it. But I mean, we'll go and do those things. We'll talk to students. We'll talk to, we'll talk to anybody, right? We're talking to anybody for these trips. And if we get the chance, we go down to Colorado City, where Jane was mentioning earlier, the FLDS cult. So that's the Fundamental Latter-day Saint group. They're a split off group. Mormonism banned polygamy. The split off happened, and so this sect of Mormonism still practices polygamy.
Yeah, it
And
was
we
Warren
will.
Jeffs group, right?
Yeah,
And
specifically the Warren Jeffs.
Yeah, he's in federal prison for life now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys don't know who Warren Jeffs is, you need to watch When Prophets Pray. It's a documentary, and you'll find out who he is and what he did and why. Yeah, just watch it. You'll cry.
Yeah. I mean, like terrible stuff. It's just it really is just a showing of the fruits that Joseph Smith left behind. Mm-hmm. I mean, because if you look at Warren Jeffs, that was Joseph Smith with just a few more years of power. Mm-hmm. And so it's really crazy, but we get to go and see the town where their hub was before they kind of got ransacked by the government because of the things that they were doing there, which are just terrible things. And so, but that's not to say that these polygamous sects aren't still here. I mean, they are. There's any estimate that says like roughly 30,000 people are still living in Utah.
Yeah,
and so
we saw the little girls in their prairie dresses. Yeah. I mean, they stand out. You'll notice them quickly.
Yeah,
if you find them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this trip basically, it kind of just hits the heart to why the Mormon people need the gospel, and why you should care, and also why do you believe what you believe? Can you articulate these ideas well? Because you're going to talk about the Trinity, repentance, faith, Jesus, but you're going to need to be able to define these words biblically with the scriptures, because they believe the Bible, they say, right? You need to be able to defend that. And if you can't, be walking away stronger in their faith. And so, but they also still need to hear the gospel. And so it's really, God gives us the strength and the ability to learn about him and to be able to share that news. And that's what this trip helps show you, is that, like for me coming out to Utah this whole year, the number one lesson I'm taking away is that I don't know my Bible at all. And I need to take a step back and get to know God like he wants me to know him. And so that's kind of what the trip will do to you, but in like a hyper sense,
Yeah. And the thing is, like, before we go on these trips, we actually prepare. So it's not like we just go out there and we don't know anything. It's like we teach the basics of Christianity, and we talk about like how do you even have these conversations, and then we throw you out there. So it's not like you just come and then we just throw you out there. But there is a little bit of preparation before this. There's an investment of time and understanding what you believe and what the LDS believes, and then you go out there. And the cool thing is, like, we might learn something in a textbook, and then you go out there, and that's not what they believe. So that's the thing. It's like you have to ask them questions and see what they actually believe, because you can't just be like, well, I learned this about your religion, blah, 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 because they might not even adhere to it. So there's a lot of learning as you're having these conversations with people. So Stan, what did you think about the missions trip, and what did it look like to you day to day?
Yeah, it's a great trip. I'm like I said earlier, I think everyone who goes on it at least thinks about the idea of like what would it be like if I moved here,
Yeah.
because it's as Cole. I mean, Cole laid all of the schedule basically. It's pretty slam packed.
Wait, we didn't talk about going door to door. Maybe you could tell us about going door to door.
Yeah. I saved that for you, Stan.
That's for you, Stan.
Exactly.
Stan comes and knocks at the door.
Yeah, it's so one of the fun things going door to door in Provo, Utah, it's like, so we all know that Mormons go door to door with their mission, as missionaries, but it's like, a role reversal where we're coming to Provo to knock on their doors.
Yeah.
And mostly return missionaries. So like, it's like, they're like, wait, hold on. I already did this. Like, it's like some fever dream for them.
Yeah.
But I think, because they had that experience where they were knocking on doors, a lot of them are like super receptive, and like they want to have conversations, and if you've ever met Mormons, like they're like some of the sweet, friendly, like just genuine people that you'll ever meet. And so like we love Mormons, and also like we appreciate like how hospitable and friendly and kind they are. And so that's one of the things that's really cool, is because they, like, many times when we're doing this, they just invite us into their home and we talk for hours sometimes.
Yep.
And they like are so curious of like, oh, why are you guys in Utah? Like, how do you like it? They want to know like what our opinions are, and like they're asking us questions. So the conversation, like most of the time, it flows so naturally. It's not like you're trying to work to have the conversation. It's like these people want to talk to you. like Cole said, many of them have never met evangelicals, so they're like really excited when they do. And sometimes they have met like Christians on their mission, and so you can talk about that. What was your experience like when you talked to a Christian? And yeah, I mean, like the conversation can go so many ways, and so many opportunities to plant seeds. And one of the things we said is like, we hope like each conversation that we can say something that might like leave a stone in their shoe. And so understanding that by talking to Mormons, you're not trying to convert them on the spot.
Yeah.
Like, praise God if that happened.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's not gonna, like, not to say it can't happen, but don't expect that to happen, because generally that's not really the way that God works in most scenarios. In most scenarios, you could be like the person who plants like one seed, and that gets watered, and someone comes along and plants another seed, and then like they hear the gospel like maybe like 10 times before they actually receive it. So you have no idea what what place you have in that journey. But just being faithful and understanding, even having a conversation with them, they could become aggressive. Usually they won't. Usually they're very kind, but like they could not receive the gospel well. They could take offense to what you're saying, because it is offensive. It can be offensive if you're truly presenting the gospel and you're telling them that we believe that you're wrong. We believe that you are in a false religious system, that you have a different Jesus, a gospel that condemns you to hell. Like, that's an offensive message. But is it the truth? And that's what we care about, the truth. Because if you have the truth and you don't share it with someone, then that's not loving them. And so coming back to, we think that even Christians, like we would say maybe more cultural Christians and Mormons alike, have been deceived by the culture to believe that truth doesn't confront. The most loving thing to do is just to let people how they want to live. But we say that the most loving thing to do is to tell them that they're wrong, so that they can have a true relationship with Jesus. It's kind of of a tangent, I guess, going back to the mission trip. I mean, that's some of the things that you will learn and be confronted with as you're going on this trip. And what does authentic Christian community look like, and sharing the gospel and living that out. But yeah, let's see, anything else to talk about? I think that it can be just really impactful to be kind of in their world
Mm-hmm.
and see this is their reality. And to us as outsiders and obviously as Christians, it seems strange, and we see their beliefs actually like kind of trying to, I guess, sympathize kind of with their reality, and just kind of just like on a human level, just understanding it. And because you can talk to a Mormon all you want, but if you like, it's one thing to just have a conversation with a Mormon, but it's another thing to actually go to Utah and be like in, like, this is where it all happens,
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a totally different experience.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's like
I think, and I just want to touch on what Stan said real with the sympathizing part.
Huh.
Because I think, and a lot of LDS have a false view of Christianity because they've met some Christians that have been very mean to them, and it has been, this has been for a long time in the church, where you talk to a lot of them, and they'll say, "Oh, I met a Christian on my mission, and they just screamed at me and told me I was in a cult and slammed the door," and that doesn't help anybody. And I mean, those statements are like, we would say those statements are true, but the thing is like, how is that helping? I saw a video that like where it was just like the Mormon Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Satan. And then I'm like, what is this? And I click it, and like the whole beginning of the video is like all this like scary organ music and like Moroni, and it's just like you're painting them a bad picture, because a lot of the people in this religion, they're not knowingly trying to deceive people with falsity. They've grown up in it, like so many Christians have grown up in it. Like, this is just their life. And so when you do that, a lot of times, if you don't separate the person from the beliefs, and you start attacking Mormonism, they're thinking you're attacking them. And so, like Stan said, it's such a good thing to be able to like come to them, show them you came to their like state, like the Mormon state, to talk to them about what they believe, and to just even go and have a conversation and not yell at them.
Yeah.
Like, that's a win for Christian. That's a win in for us, because in their mind, that's one more interaction where they said, that Christian, he was different than the ones that slammed their door in my face, because that's what they use to say that their church is true. Because if our church was true, why would we have people slamming doors, right? So I like that Stan said that, and I just wanted to kind of bring that out a bit.
Yeah, so I've met Lynn Wilder. She's the author of Unveiling Grace. And so this was a time in my life where I was, having conversation with the Mormon missionaries. One of my pastors, like, we love apologetics. So we're like, yeah, let's talk to them, invite them over. We went through like a set of 3 missionaries, and then we came across like Michael Wilder's testimony and stuff like that. And we're like, okay, yeah, people really get saved out of these things. And I mean, his whole family pretty much did. And then I got to meet Lynn at a conference in North Carolina, and I told her that I was like ministering to the Mormons, and she's like, thank you for doing that. And the one thing that I took away from having a conversation with her, she told me, is like, if you can show there is nice people outside of Mormonism, they're going to wonder why you're different, because they keep coming across Christians who are just rude and arrogant and, just aggressive. And so if we could be kind to them and love them, they're going to wonder why. And they're like, why aren't you a Mormon? So to just love them, because they're away from home, they're away from their families. I think they're kind of changing a little bit of their policies on like how much contact they could have with their families. But there's a point where they had no contact with their families at all. And so just to love on them, because it's lonely on a mission trip. And I was just like, thanks for that. Because when you don't know how to minister to Mormons, I'm pretty sure you're going to mess up a lot. And I look back and I'm like, man, I could have said that differently. And then you're just like, man, I ruined an opportunity. But then God is also so gracious to us that he uses our mess ups. And so, And so if people want to minister to Mormons, I think you probably need to learn a little bit more on like why your character matters when you reach them, because these are the nicest people you're ever going to meet. And if you're not nice, they're just going to be like, well, our religion is true because you guys are just mean. And so that's one thing about Mormonism. If you can show just as much kindness to them, they're going to wonder why. And yeah, and then when you're trying to reach Mormons, like Stan said, it's like it's unusual to have somebody convert right on the spot. I think the statistic is um, the average is 7 years of having conversations, or people trying to minister you, is when people actually will change their mind and leave Mormonism. So it's a long process because, like Cole said, this is what they grew up in. This is the only thing that they knew, and you can't expect somebody to be like, okay, I'm just going to believe everything you just told me, because this is ingrained in them. It's a way of living. And so, like, I know when a lot of people come on these mission trips, they get so frustrated because, yeah, we're sharing the truth with them, but you feel like you're just hitting a wall because you're just like, why aren't you getting this? But it's like, yes, there's also the Holy Spirit that needs to work on these people's hearts. And it's not just our arguments. Yes, our arguments and our conversations are tools for them to come to Christ, but it's also the Holy Spirit that has to work, and we aren't the Holy Spirit. So when people are on these mission trips, I'm just like, don't get frustrated. Don't beat yourself up too much, because Satan's at work. He has them captive, and the truth will set them free. And so that's what we are to do, is to just go over there and share the gospel with them and let the Holy Spirit do its work, and just to build relationships with them, because they might not have Christian evangelical friends. And so that's my little sermon. I'm just kidding. But is there anything else you guys want to share? And then you guys could give everybody your handles on Instagram and where they could find your podcast and all that stuff.
Yeah. I guess the last thing I gotta say is basically, in this, what Stan and Will, are behind the scenes when we talk to each other, is we want people to know that we love Mormons, we love the Latter-day Saint people, but we hate the church. And it's really hard to separate the two. It is. But what we mean by that, obviously, is that we love these people because Jesus came and died so that they may be saved. But we hate this church because that church is what's stopping them, right? I mean, obviously, it's our hearts as well, and it's our sinful nature, and it's our just rejection of the true gospel. But I mean, this whole organization doesn't help either, right? Because you don't have you have to deconstruct Mormonism and then also build up Christianity for them. And that's really hard for them, because when the terms are so similar, a lot of times Latter-day Saints don't want anything to do with religion after leaving, if they ever leave. So that's Stan and I's and Will's heart behind the podcast, behind our ministry, as it continue. Hopefully, pray it continues to grow and reaches those it needs to reach, is that we love the Mormon people and we hate what the church is doing to them. And so that's what I just want to clarify, is that if a Latter-day Saint listens to that, is that I love you, and I don't, and because I love you, let's talk about why I don't like the church. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's really good. I would say, if you're new to the ministry of talking to Mormons, it's easy to kind of feel intimidated or frustrated. Don't let that stop you. Don't let that whelm you, because you're going to learn so much through experience and just by doing it. So you just need to jump in and start having conversations and start talking to missionaries. And you're not going to know everything at first, but you're going to learn a ton through that process. But just start having conversations, and you don't need to feel to know everything, and you're going to learn a lot just by asking them questions. And another try to take control of the conversations. Try to direct it always back to actual topics surrounding who is Jesus, who is God, what is the nature of truth, what is the Bible, can we trust the Bible, because Mormons believe that the Bible's been corrupted. So trying to give them a little bit of a lesson and just transmission of the text and textual criticism. And what else was I was going to say? Yeah, I think those are these. So God, Jesus, in the Bible, and you can have different other conversations as well, but those are, you always want to come back to the gospel. Oh yeah, the other thing I mentioned I wanted to say how we can be right with God, salvation. So you're gonna have a lot of conversations about grace, and they understand grace in a totally different way. So those conversations are always fun. But yeah, and also having verses in your back pocket, to you want to know verses in the Book of Mormon. You don't have to know all of it, but just have some verses you can ask them about, like Moroni 32, talking about if you deny yourself of all ungodliness, then grace is sufficient for you, and other verses like that. And then you want to have some verses in the Bible to go to as well, and Romans, Galatians, Ephesians, so then have verses to point them to, or like Isaiah 43:10, talking about how God has always been God. No God was formed before him or after him. So talking, conversations about eternal progression. Always wanting to go back to the gospel and not getting distracted by conversations like polygamy or garments, or other things that are interesting but not essential conversations.
Great. Those are great tips. So now you guys get to tell everybody about where they can find you and where they can listen to your stuff, because you guys are basically like Mormon experts in progress. Is that what you guys call yourselves?
In progress, yeah.
In progress.
We have the progression.
We're always progressing.
Yeah. Our handles on Instagram, I mean, you can find us at CameUntoChrist. So for those that don't know, we chose that name because it's a play on words for their organization. Their website is called Come Unto Christ. Mm-hmm. And so the whole point behind our ministry is the fact that Jesus came to us and we have already come unto him. Like John 5:24 says, right? That if we believe him sent me and have heard his words, that we have eternal life. So we already have it. And that verse is so good because even in eternal life, the LDS changed that definition, and they changed it to the celestial kingdom, which is the highest level you can go to. So even if we're using their definition, I already have, because I believed in Jesus. And so, but you can find us at Came Unto Christ. Our podcast is Came Unto Christ Podcast, and our Facebook is Came Unto Christ Facebook page. So we're kind of very simple in that.
Very straightforward. So yeah, thanks for being here, guys. I'm just excited about what God's going to do in your lives, because we're all moving to Utah, right?
Yeah, that's the takeaway, right?
We all get dinner one time.
Yeah,
soon.
Yeah, so you're headed back to North Carolina. We're going to miss you. And I'm going to move to Utah while you go back to North Carolina. But you're only going to be gone for a few months, and then you'll be back, and then we'll be on the streets together. So, and then you're going to bring Stan with you, and we're just going to go knocking.
We'll have to bring Will along too.
Yeah, we got to convince him. Get him out of the New Hampshire woods.
Yeah, how is he doing ministry to Mormons? Are there Mormons in New Hampshire? You guys know?
I mean, he's talking to his friend from BYU still, but I think he's about to leave mission or something.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so it's pretty amazing. Him and Morgan have been keeping up with one of the guys they met at BYU every week, pretty much. So that's been really encouraging.
I think I met with that guy one time in the food court thing. But I mean, I made friends with some of the people I've met on mission too, and having a relationship with them, they obviously know we have big differences and that we care for one another and we're on this pursuit of truth, but doesn't mean we can't be friends. And so, that's one of the beautiful things. If you could actually make a friend out of this and continue on the journey to have these conversations, I think it's pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks for being here with us, and thank you guys for being here. And I'll see you in Utah. Bye, everybody.